Welcome back, welcome back. Welcome to Duality 7X. I'm your host, Shiraz. Guys, if you guys are just waking up and oblivious to what happened in the world of sports entertainment over the weekend, primarily last night, then that's equivalent to somebody living under a rock for years and years and years, only to wake up and realize that the world has completely changed. We witnessed history yesterday, guys. Let me break it down for you. I actually wanted to post something last night after the Canelo Crawford fight. I kind of, I wasn't earlier in the day. I wasn't at the point from an eligibility kind of standpoint to be able to do a live stream. You have to have so many subscribers to your channel, and we didn't have that, but now we do, which is good because now we can talk about doing some future live streams and kind of talking about that in real time. Because a lot of this, what I'm going to talk about, would have been great last night, fresh off the fight, fresh off what we witnessed, the decision. And we could have had a great conversation, but now a lot of people are just kind of surfacing, waking up, and for those who had the opportunity to watch the clash between Canelo and Crawford, we're in for a treat. And for those who didn't get a chance to, I hope you guys get a chance to watch it. Now, in addition to that, there was a lot of other stuff that was going on. I mean, we also have the main card. We had the prelims to the fight. And guys, the main card, not disappointing. In fact, I'm going to actually talk a little bit about the main card as well, too. I'm probably going to do that, I guess, at the end of this video, because I know everybody wants to hear my thoughts and reaction to the Canelo Crawford fight, obviously. But the main card, the prelims are really good too. I honestly didn't really take a lot of notes in that. There's a few good fighters. There's a young fighter from Saudi who looks absolutely incredible. He was on the prelims, and then we had Jermaine Franklin, heavyweight, who is on a bit of a win streak, and that was pretty exciting. But today I'm going to focus more on the main card, and I'm going to focus, of course, on the main event. Now, the main card, we had Muhammad Alkalal. He took on Travis Crawford. Then we had Christian Mbili, who's a Canadian, originally from Cameroon, but is representing Quebec, Canada. And he took on Martinez, Lester Martinez. And Lester Martinez wanted to be the first Guatemalan to actually win the championship from Mbili. And think about this, right? Martinez, what an amazing story. He was training with Terence Crawford. So that's interesting. And then you also got Dana White's hyped up fighter, Callum Walsh. And guys, he's not just hype, he's the real deal. Dana White likes this guy. Dana White is one of those guys, he's been around the world of sports for so long, especially combat sports, that he can recognize talent when he sees it. And he has nothing but good things to say about Callum Walsh. He was absolutely incredible in his fight against Fernando Vargas Jr., son of the legendary former world champion Fernando Vargas Sr. And then, of course, that was a co-main event, and we have the main event, and we got Canelo versus Crawford. It was a massive showdown. The scene takes place in Las Vegas at the Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL's Las Vegas Raiders, and that stadium was packed. It was packed, and everybody came to see two legends collide, going head to head. Canelo Alvarez against Terence "Bud" Crawford, and they were battling for not only bragging rights, okay, about who's going to be pound for pound probably one of the greatest fighters to have ever lived, or at least in this era, but more importantly, for the Undisputed Super Middleweight Championship crown. Now, The place was abuzz, celebrities galore, athletes, you name it. Anybody and everybody who could be there was there. I wasn't, but one day I will be. I really wish I was in that environment. The atmosphere looked incredible. You had His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh. This was his fight. And he teamed up with the likes of Zuffa Entertainment, TKO Holdings. You got Dana White. You had there was a lot of big folks there, big people. And you know what was really incredible about this whole fight was the amount of the fact that every boxer brought everything but the kitchen sink to the ring and laid it all on the line. This was for all the belts, guys. And that's why I said this was for the undisputed super middleweight crown. But this was for the whole kit and caboodle, guys. And in addition to that, bragging rights, legacy, everything was on the line, right? You have an undefeated Terence Crawford taking on a guy who's technically undefeated in the division, right? Saul Alvarez, and who subsequently has had more matches, right? So he has a lot more experience, if you want to call it that, than Crawford does. And he's only had 2 defeats, right? So, I mean, Canelo is king. Like, it was absolutely incredible to see 2 of these boxing icons go toe to toe. And you got to understand, Crawford is getting up there in age, right? I think now he's close to like 38 years old. Saul Alvarez is like 35, and that does play into factor a little bit when you're looking at these fights. Conditioning, training, all that. And I never had any doubts of either of these fighters not being able to be fully conditioned, prior to this fight. I knew that these guys were going to come with everything that they had and bring everything that they could to the table, because this is what these guys do. This is what they've been trained and conditioned to do. These guys are the elite of elite. They're professionals. They know what they need to do because their craft is science to them. And so that's why when they come out and they put on a show, they put on a show. All right? And this was Crawford, despite his age. He also had to jump up 2 weight classes. Okay, that's an incredible accomplishment. 2 weight classes, all right? Just to make this fight. And he, in addition to everything that I talked about, one of the biggest things riding for Terence Crawford in this fight, because, he had his undefeated streak on the line, but more importantly, this was his opportunity to be the first male fighter, first male boxer, right, in a 4-belt era to claim undisputed titles in three separate divisions, weight divisions. 3 separate divisions. No other fighter, no other boxer has ever done that. All right? And then I talked about Canelo being a little younger, 35 years old, and this obviously he knew was going to be one of his biggest tests to date. All right? And one thing about Saul Alvarez is that I'll tell you right now, I don't care what people... There's a lot of smack that's said about him. He's overrated. He's this, he's that. Look, bottom line is Canelo's Canelo. He doesn't shy away from a fight. This is the kind of guy that you put a fighter in front of him, he could be the best pound for pound, undefeated, have all the credentials like a Terence Crawford, and he'll be like, okay, let's do it. He doesn't even need time to talk to his training camp or to think about it, to go through tape, and then decide, wait a minute, should we take on this fight? Or do you think this guy's a little too good? Maybe we should take on someone a little bit less talented, maybe a B or a C class fighter. That's not Canelo. That's never been his style. Anyone who knows Canelo and has been watching his fights knows. And look, you don't even have to ask anyone. The record speaks for itself. Canelo's one of those guys. He takes on the best of the best. He loves the sport of boxing. This is what he lives for. That's why he wants only the best competition. And in this case, he faced nothing but the best. So this was his opportunity to walk out of that ring, out of the Allegiant Stadium, as pound for pound the king of his division and probably one of the greatest fighters of all time. Now, I after this fight, it doesn't matter who won, who lost, because both of these fighters are pound for pound the greatest fighters in the world. They've already cemented their legacies tenfold. All right, so let's line it up, guys. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford for the IBF, WBA, WBC, WBO, and the Ring super middleweight titles. Guys, the Ring the Ring created a special, like, they made a new special, like, not a new belt, it's the same belt, but they designed a belt specifically for this clash, this clash between these two titans. And the cost of creating this belt, because it's made out of solid gold, was a little over 200 some thousand dollars. Okay, and I think I also did a little short on this, or video. I think it's over 200,000 US dollars. Could be pounds. It's expensive. Okay, it's definitely expensive. And these titles are only given to, they're not just given to anybody. Originally, the Ring designed this title, and for the first individual to receive it was Jack Dempsey, I believe. But you have a lot of greats who got it. Muhammad Ali, so many fighters deserving of this title were the recipient of this title, and it goes to those that perform above and beyond expectation, right? So there's a little bit of a criteria involved. It's not just given to everybody. So this was a very, very special title. And then the WBC, they created a championship ring. I think this is the first time I've seen something like this, from what I recall. But it was a WBC gold diamond encrusted ring, championship ring, similar to what you see that's given out to football players, basketball players, hockey players after winning the championship title. But this specific ring, I don't know the cost of this ring, but it looked absolutely expensive. I have a YouTube short on my channel. Check it out. I just posted it yesterday, and people are going crazy just talking about this ring. Cool thing about this ring is you can twist the top off, and it's connected by like magnets too, and then a locking kind of mechanism, so it's pretty secure. But when you open up the top, inside is like it's the stadium with the little ring, and it's all in gold. And on one side it's written Canelo, and the other side it's Crawford. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, there was a lot of gold, a lot of a lot of treasure. There was a lot of gold, a lot of treasure, technically, that was on the line. So that was really amazing. Callum Walsh, I talked about the co-main event versus Fernando Vargas Jr. That was a super welterweight fight. Christian Mbili versus Lester Martinez. This was for the WBC super middleweight title. And then I talked about Muhammad Ali versus Travis Crawford. And then there was some other fighters. There was some other prelim fights as well. Jermaine Franklin versus Ivan Tishko. That was a heavyweight. And then Rito Susumi versus Javier Martinez. And then Sultan Alta Muhammad taking on the likes of Martin Caravallo. Now, this particular fighter, you guys got to watch. Sultan Al Muhammad is absolutely incredible. We're going to be hearing a lot from him soon. And then, of course, we had Raiko Santana taking on Steven Nelson, and then Marco Verde versus Sona Kelly. Now, let's get to the nuts and bolts, guys. Again, I'm Shiraz. I'm your host. This is Duality 7X. If this is your first time here, then welcome back. Or welcome, sorry, for the first time, and welcome back to all those who are returning. And we here on this channel, we cover all the latest and the greatest when it comes to stories and things that are trending from the world of MMA, UFC, the WWE, and boxing. And so let me get to this one heck of a story that I'm just antsy about wanting to share with you guys, and I know you guys are too. So we talked about Crawford having to move up 2 weight classes. A lot of people were concerned about about this and about whether Crawford was going to have enough time and how his body was actually going to react, right? Moving up 2 weight classes is a feat to itself, and it's a science. And if not done correctly under proper supervision and guidance, people can get sick. Their body can wear down, tear down. It can cause a lot of internal damages as well to your organs. There's a lot of ramifications and side effects that could happen just by moving up and moving down and cutting weight if it's not done correctly, right? There's a huge risk. And a lot of the consensus, a lot of what people were talking about was, is Crawford actually going to be okay? Because a lot of people were looking at Canelo and Canelo's size, and they were afraid that Terence didn't do enough to be able to match up against his bulkness. And a lot of people were actually changing their bets and taking their money off of Crawford and putting it on Canelo because they didn't think his body. I mean, although Terence felt that he was ready to go, he was fine. But a lot of people felt that his body wasn't, and it was going to actually do him a lot of injustice in the ring. And so this was interesting, right? So Canelo, he is what he is, man. He knows how to do these things. He knows what he has to do to prepare himself and get ready for this fight. And both Canelo and Crawford were amazing. This just wasn't a fight, okay? This was a display of pure strategy, boxing science. I'm really kind of happy that Dana White and some of the UFC echelon were sitting up front to watch this fight, because they had the opportunity, and not that they haven't before, but they had the opportunity to see boxing's finest put on a show that was just purely science and art. It was absolutely stunning. It was incredible to watch these two fighters having to go the distance and to fight at such a high level is unfathomable. A lot of people can't do it. It hasn't been reciprocated in quite some time. I'm thinking back, sorry, to Hagler versus Leonard, and then watching old tapes of Sphinx and Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, some Roy Jones fight. There's fighters who've done it, pulled it off, and it's beautiful. This was an absolute show. It was pure entertainment. It was strategy. There was discipline. There was timing. Everything that you wanted to see in your favorite fighter was exemplified, not just by your favorite fighter, but by both fighters. And from round one, Crawford was patient. He was working angles, using his footwork, dodging shots, right? Countering with precision. Canelo was pressing hard, and his shots were clean. They were precise. They were tactical, and they were heavy shots, to the point where I thought, if he keeps this up, there's a chance that we're probably going to see a knockout. And both of these guys were just lugging it out all the way to the bitter end, forcing exchanges, some coming up short. It is what it is. I mean, mid-fight, I honestly thought Canelo began landing some serious solid body work. Canelo started to shift and pivot a little bit. As he started to switch gears, you notice that he was not focusing so much on the upper body, like the head area and stuff, or the shoulder, the chest area. He started to work the body and going into the lower abdomen, and into his sides, or his obliques and all that were. And that's usually what smart fighters do, because it wears and tears and breaks down those fighters. So it makes them mush. So by the time they get into the latter rounds, a fighter who's not as conditionally and physically fit breaks down and susceptible to potential knockouts and things along those lines. But yeah, I know. I was watching it and I was like, Canelo, I see you, man. And I know exactly what he was doing, and it was absolutely beautiful. That said, every time Canelo tried to, launch an offensive attack, Crawford was right there to counter, and his defense was impeccable, as was Canelo's for the most part. And Crawford would just rein in a couple shots right after. His precision counters are, I think, what helped, and his jabs, I think, are what saved the day and gave the upper hand to Crawford. And I'm telling you, from a judge's scorecard, all right, if you're trying to collect points, there's no better way to collect points than to continue to jab. Because as those jabs start to connect with the fighter, that lands, that becomes a point. It has to be clean land, but it becomes a point. So it's a great way to muster up some points for sure. Right? And Crawford, he maintained control. Like I was talking about discipline, his footwork, his stamina. He never lost composure. And where I thought that potentially Crawford could, because I thought that the body work that Canelo was, tattooing him with, was going to start to wear in the later rounds. And I thought this is where Crawford's going to slow down a little bit, and then Canelo's just going to come in there and boom, 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 switch gears, go for the upper body and knock him out. That wasn't the case. In this case, Crawford's stamina was second to none. He proved why he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. And even when Canelo tried to rally or trap him, especially against the ropes, Crawford would slide and pick up his moment. And then he started landing the more telling punches, the punches that started to count, right? The judges scored it unanimously for Crawford. I believe this was 116 to 112, 115 to 113, and 115 to 113. It was unanimous. And that tells you it wasn't a blowout, right? I mean, but yes, it was unanimous, but at the same time, it was somewhat close as well too. But Canelo tried in the early rounds to really get a lot of those points, and it did work for him. And then he came back in the ninth round, in the 8th, 9th, kind of 10th round, and you saw a little bit of that Canelo magic. But I think it was too late. It was really too late for him. And Crawford, from round 6 all the way through to the end, pretty much had this in the bag. Now, here's a turning point for Crawford. Now he becomes the first male boxer in a 4-belt era, right, to be undisputed, to be the undisputed champion in 3 separate weight classes, which is unheard of. Okay, no other fighter has been able to accomplish that. Pure and simple. That's what we call legacy stuff, right? Now for Canelo, this may be a time to go back to the drawing board, sit with this team, and to have a serious discussion and to kind of reevaluate. Now, when I say serious discussion, I'm not talking about retiring. That's not Canelo. That's not Canelo style. Canelo is such an amazing fighter that if there was another fight after this fight, he'd go get retaped up, and then he'd be back out there and he'd fight another 10, 12 rounds. That's how amazingly gifted of an athlete Canelo is. But he does need to go back, and he does need to reevaluate some things, because the Canelo that we saw yesterday, and guys, this is important. This is I'm talking to you from the heart here. I love both of these fighters. And when I saw Canelo go in there, and at the age of 35, and the way he was putting on his performance in the early rounds, I was like, holy crap. This guy's going to tear up Crawford. But although Crawford is older in age, when it comes to boxing age, Canelo is older than Crawford. Canelo actually looked like he had more wear and tear on his body than Crawford did. And that makes sense, because Canelo's fought close to 70 some fights, whereas Crawford has had about 25 to 30 less fights than Canelo has. And you think, well, we should be looking at it more from an age perspective. That's not the case at all. We got to look at the wear and tear, because you can't. The one thing 100%, the one thing I can guarantee, guys, and the one thing I'll tell you from my experience watching a lot of boxing, a lot of fights, and just sports in general. It's not just boxing and UFC, MMA. We're not WWE. I'm talking about soccer. I'm talking about hockey, football. The one thing you cannot do, regardless of how amazing you look, how gifted and talented you are, how incredibly, like, what an incredible shape you have, uh, the one thing you cannot do is to beat Father Time. Time is going, it's ticking, every second is going like this, guys. It's moving. And one day, we're getting older and older as we speak. Not to paint the doom and gloom on everybody, but that's the truth. And that's what happened. And I think in Canelo's case, yes, he had a lot more experience, he had a lot more fights, but guys, and those are just fights. The ones that I'm talking about, those 70 matches, those are the fights that are recorded. What about all the sparring sessions that he had? Going toe to toe with fighters in the ring. That's undocumented, unrecorded. They're just sparring sessions. All of that adds up. And I heard that Canelo was going extra hard on his sparring sessions, taking on more than he should. That could have also gone to, that could have actually been one of the mitigating factors as to why perhaps he didn't, he wasn't successful in this. He was probably just a little gassed. There was a point where Crawford just came in there and gave him a quick combo and beautifully clean shot right to the jaw, and it literally shook Canelo. Like it made Canelo like shift his entire stance. His head went 80 degrees. It looked like. And Canelo just looked, and he's just like, it looked like he was just disgusted with himself. He was just really pissed because he knew at that point he realized he didn't have an answer. And the momentum clearly was with Crawford. No matter what Canelo tried to do after that point, no matter what clean shots he was able to land, or the heavy shots, or getting in there and landing a quick 1-2 or a combo and pulling back, it didn't matter. Crawford had an answer for everything. He was just unstoppable. And that's what happened. So now when Canelo goes back to reevaluate his style, his strategy, and possibly even talking about the division itself, the question comes down to does he take a step back? Does Canelo know, like we all know, Canelo signed with Riyadh season, all right? And everybody would love to see a rematch, but do you really want to see a rematch right off the bat? How about, I want to see a rematch, but I think the better thing to do is for both Crawford and Canelo to just go back, take some time off, and maybe fight other fighters, right? At least, one fight for Crawford, one fight for Saul, and then come back for like a super mega fight. Now, that's easy for me to say, right? I mean, I'm in the captain's chair here. I got a remote in my hand. I can watch this thing. I can call it like I see it. Then again, I'm not the fighter. When it comes to financial, these guys have achieved it all. They don't, money's not the driving motivation for them. Money's a catalyst like it is in everything, but it's not the driving factor. They're not doing this for money. Money. If we're talking about $100 million or something along those lines, yeah. But it's not all about the money. These guys are at a point where what matters to them most is their craft, their legacy, their name recognition. They want their name etched in the history books, and they want people talking, saying their names for years and years and years to come. That's why they do it. The ancient gladiators in ancient Rome, when they fought, as much as they wanted their freedom and security, there was something about that roar from the crowd that just, it was like an addiction, like a drug that they couldn't get away from it. There's been known documented cases where certain gladiators were able to secure their freedom and no longer had to put their life on the line going into the ancient arenas to perform in front of those crowds, they didn't have to do that anymore, but they missed it so much that some of them would go back into that, putting their life on the line. And when I say putting their life on the line, that's what it was. And in some cases, for most of those fighters, two people go in, one person comes out. That's how it used to be, right? So, anyhow, we obviously live in a different day and age, and thankfully and hopefully we never have to see that. But I'm talking about legacy, and legacy is very important, guys, right? So, what does this mean for future matchups? And what does it mean for these two fighters? Like, what else are they going to be fighting for? Crawford's got a championship ring. He's got a $250 thousand custom ring belt. He's got his name etched in memory books, history books, sorry, and all the boxing records. If this guy were to retire today, he's definitely in the Boxing Hall of Fame, hands down. And in fact, Crawford doesn't need to fight. He's undefeated. Maybe he just goes off into the sunset, and maybe he takes on another role and comes back into the world of boxing or combat sports, maybe in a different capacity, maybe as maybe in commentary, or maybe as a coach, or something. Because question that if I'm Crawford, I'm like, why do I want another fight when I've got all the money in the world, I've got all the gold and all the titles, and I'm undefeated? Why do I want to put that on the line? I mean, that's a question that he's going to have to ask, right? So now, it was a great fight. It was a lot of people were surprised to see the likes of Dana White, Triple H, and his wife Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan from the World Wrestling Entertainment, and a lot of people are like, "Wow, what's going on here?" Well, what's going on is that these big brands. All right, there has been a lot of promotions of this fight, the Canelo Crawford fight, on the World Wrestling Entertainment networks, and during the SmackDown and Raw events and their big pay-per-view events. There's been a lot of promotion about this fight, and so Nick Khan has got a big invested interest. TKO Holdings, Zuffa Entertainment, Dana White, the UFC. They partnered up with Turkey Al Sheikh. And they're working with Paramount, and a lot of these big players are coming together in efforts of bringing more events like this, crossover events, boxing, mixed martial arts kind of together as well, and creating a new format, a new way to watch and see these fights, and to bring in efforts of doing a crossover of fans from different genres of these sports and bringing them all into one. I mean, that's a genius move. I think it's absolutely incredible, and I am super excited because there's a lot more. There's a lot more that's going to be coming down the pipe. Super excited about in the near short term. So, quick summary. I believe Crawford honestly outboxed Canelo. He mixed defense counters and timing in a way that Canelo honestly couldn't really quite crack. He tried it a couple occasions, and it just didn't work. Crawford always had an answer and a counter for Canelo's attacks. It was absolutely legendary, no doubt about that. I want to hear from you. Do you think Canelo can come back from this? Put your thoughts below, and we'll get this debate going, guys. And if you like this breakdown, hit the like and subscribe. Join us here on Duality 7X for more fight talk, and I'll definitely be sure to catch you guys for more conversations like this. And just remember, we also had UFC Noche that happened yesterday as well too. We had Diego Lopez taking on Silva. What a fight, guys. What a card. And then we had Inoue taking on Akhmadaliev. And that was for the title as well too. And Inoue won that fight. And actually that happened not yesterday, but kind of today, early in the morning. Obviously it happened overseas. And he had a unanimous decision, which was 118 to 110 against Akhmadaliev. So there was a lot that happened, and then there was some unfortunate news as well too, which I'm going to post in another video. We have a former legendary boxing great, Ricky the Hitman Hatton, who has subsequently passed away. And anyhow, I'll talk more about that in another video. But listen, guys, I'm going to have another video that's just going to talk about the fight card here. I'm going to end this one. And if you guys want to hear my thoughts about what happened in the main card, then watch my next video. And I look forward to catching you guys on the next one. See you guys. Take care.